Thank you, Steve. Good afternoon. I'm Neil Bradley, Executive Vice President and Chief Policy Officer here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. In a moment, we'll be joined by Administrator for the SBA, the Honorable Isabella Guzman. Administrator Guzman is actually in her second tour at the SBA, having previously served as Deputy Chief of Staff in the Obama administration. But her ties to small business run back much farther than that. She's an entrepreneur herself. She grew up in a small business household, and she's been a fierce advocate for small businesses across the country and in California, where she's most recently served as the Small Business Advocate. She, of course, assumed office in an historic period, both for the SBA and for small businesses across the nation, as they struggle to recover from the pandemic and emerge stronger, poised for growth in the future. So there's no better person to hear from today than Administrator Guzman about the state of small business. Mr. Guzman, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Well, it is my pleasure to be here with small businesses and chambers. I mean, I think you've been obviously on the front lines of COVID in so many ways in terms of our economic situation. And so really appreciate the opportunity to engage with everyone today. And I want to give a shout out as well to Jeanette Mulvey, who opened us up, and also for the incredible work that she's done on the CO site. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. I spent some time on it, and it's such a strong everyday resource for small businesses, organized for you to be able to tune in to start, run, and grow your business, and as well, join a good company section, which I think during the pandemic, that collaborative spirit of small businesses and communities across the country is what kept so many afloat, sharing information, sharing best practices, learning from each other. So it's just a wonderful collaborative spirit site that I know is going to be invaluable to the small businesses. And kudos to all the chamber leaders and staff for bringing this event to life. I know you work tirelessly connecting small businesses across the country. In essence, the glue holding us all together. So thank you so much for all that you continue to do and have done. Today's event really couldn't come at a better moment for America's small businesses, because especially right now, while we're talking about how we're going to bring our economy back and build back better. On one hand, we've made so much progress, and our economy is growing at a record rate. President Biden's leadership fighting COVID and getting our country safe and vaccinated, as well as providing economic support through the American Rescue Plan, has been pivotal, as well as the spirit of resilience and ingenuity of all of our small businesses that are here today in addition. The SBA has been able to keep so many Main Street businesses going by infusing our nation's businesses with more than $1 trillion in financial relief, including the Biden-Harris administration's focus this year on getting relief into the hands of our smallest firms and the hardest hit industries and those underserved communities that had challenges accessing relief in the past. Now, President Biden's forward-thinking leadership has helped create 4 million new jobs at the fastest pace of job creation of any new president in history. And as small businesses create 2/3 of net new jobs and employ half the private workforce, I know how much you've all done to keep our local communities and economy going. You have been doing your best out there, and we've been trying to do our best to support you because you do power our economy. And the SBA has worked with millions of small businesses over these nearly 2 years of this pandemic, just to help secure financial lifelines through COVID relief, and also to give advice on helping to pivot and adapt and seize new opportunities. We have many reasons, I think, to continue to believe in that spirit of entrepreneurship and America's strong business recovery. But our nation is also still facing historic challenges. I think everyone's aware that the Delta variant sort of continues to loom large, affecting us on multiple fronts, from workforce to just consumer behaviors. And vaccine disinformation and division have turned this crisis into what CDC's directors calls a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Many of you are watching Congress and wondering if the next debt ceiling crisis will be the one thing that brings the economy down. And I know that there's been so many issues that you've had to be very adaptable to along the way. So we do have our work cut out for us, and the stakes are high. With all the work that you do to propel our economy, producing 40% of America's economic output. COVID-19 did expose barriers that existed historically, inequities and racism that we know held back a lot of our small businesses, our underserved businesses that were undercapitalized as a result. And our economy can't afford any of those inefficiencies or leaving talent on the sidelines, as from rural communities to urban communities. And that's what the SBA is all about, making sure that there's access to capital, and that those opportunity gaps don't continue, that we can fill them. And right now we are missing out on too much in our economy from businesses that can't reach their highest potential. And that's the goal of the SBA, is to ensure that we can fill some of those gaps and help all of our entrepreneurs, so that every small business owner that needs help, no matter where they live or who they are, can access that. And I do believe we can get there. And we're trying to be as entrepreneurial as all of you. We want to make sure that we can help our small businesses continue to push forward. And so we're making structural reforms and trying to transform the SBA to meet you where you are. And so that we can empower you to get that capital, loans or investments or grants, and access markets, whether it's supply chains or main streets, and get those networks built up around you, like the wonderful website of the Chamber CO. But we want to, regardless, empower you to build revenues, and get capital to seek those opportunities to grow. The bipartisan infrastructure deal, which is a $1.2 trillion investment in our nation's infrastructure, together with the Build Back Better investments that are proposed, will help small businesses and create incredible opportunities, from innovation to Main Street. And the SBA will prioritize being customer-centric and technology-forward and equitable as we design and implement our programs and do the outreach to make sure that we can get to all of you, to help make sure that you can reopen, rebuild, take advantage of opportunities, and emerge stronger and more resilient. We want you to feel like the giants you are. I always say that small businesses are giants in our economy, but I want you to feel that way with SBA services. And so we will continue to focus on helping you recover and take advantage of the growth that we see in the future for our nation as we come to build it back better. So I look forward to the conversation and the questions you have in store, and see if we can dive in deeper into some of SBA's programs and how we can offer our support to you.
Well, thank you, Administrator. Feeling like the giants that the audience is, I love that. And I'm probably going to steal that and use that in the future, because they should feel like giants, because they really are. Our small businesses are the giants of our communities and our national economy. Speaking of giant growth, the SBA had quite a bit of growth over the last 2 years. You went from serving tens of thousands of small businesses a year to millions of small businesses. Some of the programs that you administer, like the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP became almost a household name, right? Everyone knows what PPP stood for and what it was able to do. As a result of that, a lot of small businesses who have maybe never interacted with the SBA before have been introduced to you and the work that you do. I'm curious how you think about, as we come out of the pandemic, leveraging that access, leveraging those new relationships to continue to support small businesses and communities, both in the pandemic recovery, but even more importantly, in the post-pandemic world.
Yeah, it's such a great question and reflection. I think it's so true that right now, more than ever, there's so much focus on small business and so much interest in trying to partner to support our small businesses. Philanthropy is interested, all of corporate America, of course, the federal government as well, through the SBA and its great programs. And so I think when you put it in perspective, though, it's true that SBA scaled from putting out about $40 billion to, over the course of the pandemic, over $1 trillion in relief, and continuing with our core programs in the process, which is lending, investments, grants, connection to capital, or connection to contracts through the federal government, the largest buyer, or just resources, those local advisors through our networks who are really helping businesses pivot during this time, giving advice on workforce, advice on strategic planning and connecting to capital, or just how to adopt technology and pivot to e-commerce, for example. So scaling up to meet the constantly changing demands in this environment has been a challenge, and to get out that relief. And with our focus this year on making sure it's equitable, that we still find those smallest entities who needed that round of PPP. And even the Government Accountability Office did a study and found that the SBA this year really did an enormous job at trying to get to those underserved zip codes and communities around the country that maybe didn't get PPP in the first round. So really proud of that, and making sure that the economic injury disaster loans continues to get out. So it's been incredible. And when we launch a program, we scale it nationally to everybody and be as inclusive as possible. And just in my 6 months, we've launched 6 new programs nationally, including some very targeted grant programs, as well as a community navigators pilot program. And we've also revamped others because we're not happy with not having excellent customer service across the board. And what we're really trying to focus on is making these programs easily, swiftly accessible, easy to use, as we have done with some of our recently launched programs, like restaurants that took less than 30 minutes to apply. So we really want to try to take advantage of this moment by building up partnerships as we're doing this work. And our incredible networks have of course been substantial in helping us get this relief out through our lending partners and our networks. But as well, it's a moment to take advantage of that interest in the SBA and small business knowledge of our programs to try to deliver something else great for them, so that they continue to have a good feeling about the SBA and know that government can work for you, government can be accessible, and that we are trying to build those bridges to products that will really help your business thrive and create the partnerships across wonderful nonprofits like the Chamber, as well as corporations, philanthropy, lenders, etc., to build a really strong ecosystem for you all.
Minister, I want to dive in on this partnership question, because I will tell you from our perspective at the U.S. Chamber, one of the great successes that SBA had, and frankly that the small business community had over the past 2 years, was the strength of partnerships, right? So, in the PPP program, the SBA partnering with banks and community lending institutions, and, as we sought to collectively to reach the most disadvantaged businesses who have had trouble accessing navigators who can help, and certainly the small chambers who are joining us today played a crucial role in informing not just their members, but their whole community that they operate in about these programs. How do we keep that going? And what would you like to see, local chambers of commerce, local associations? What would you like to see the U.S. Chamber doing, as well as our other partners, to help make sure that we sustain the momentum of this public-private partnership?
That's great. Well, we know there are gaps in capital markets, and that less than half of businesses get their funding from a bank. And so obviously if we want to meet businesses where they are, we need to come to you in different creative ways, so that you can connect to lenders in the network and find community financial institutions, which are those community development financial institutions, and the minority depository institutions, and other local community development corporations, all the community-minded, mission-focused lenders that are out there. And SBA has tools and platforms to connect to those lenders, as well as to the incredible banking partners. We have now over 5,000 lenders as part of our network, and previously, right before COVID, just over 1,000 to 2,000. So we have grown incredibly, and we want to keep that going and provide products and tools through this incredible distribution network. And some of the direct lending proposals that we have really imagine are using this distribution network in the same powerful way as we leveraged during PPP, so that we can get to more of our businesses out there in the types of numbers that we did with PPP, because that's when we reached millions. So we recognize that, and we recognize the gaps that exist, and that businesses come to capital in different ways, and that includes through the champions like the chambers, because that's what you all are in those communities. You're champions that can connect these businesses to resources. Maybe it's a local grant program that the county's putting on with some of the federal relief program funds that they received, or maybe it's through a state program, or through a national program. And I think being able to have that knowledge sitting at the chambers is so valuable, because you can be that connector and that champion of all these programs. So we recognize that they're with 32.5 million small businesses and innovative startups. and 80% of them being solopreneurs, that we have to be really creative to continue to reach all of the communities and serve everybody, because we don't have a big marketing budget, and it's government. We can't always get locally into communities, and so we depend on networks. And the Community Navigator pilot program is all about that. Is trying to create local navigators, champions, to just broadcast out information as a trusted source that small businesses rely on.
Well, count us in. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and do our part. The pandemic brought lots of surprises, and occasionally a few of them were actually pleasant surprises. One of the biggest, from my perspective, was this enormous growth in new business starts. For decades, colleagues at the Department of Commerce have been tracking new business formation, and it had been on the decline. And all of a sudden that reversed during the pandemic. And even better than that reversal, when they looked at the new businesses that have been formed over the last 2 years, they have a high propensity for growth, meaning that they're going to become employers themselves. One of the most common questions we get at the Chamber and through our co-platform is, what are the resources that are out there for someone who's just getting started, who just got their business license, they just opened their doors? What does the SBA have to offer for an entrepreneur who's really just beginning?
Yeah, we definitely want to focus on startups and making sure that they can continue to survive and build a resilient business. Where we know that businesses need support on is definitely capital, because they're trying to seek opportunities and grow. And if they're going to be creating those jobs or scaling or growing at a strong rate, they definitely need capital. And so we're envisioning how we can de-risk investments in small businesses so that more can access capital, even beyond friends and family and credit cards. So that's really critical. We know that has to be part of the agenda, and so we're looking at direct lending for loans under 150,000, where a lot of businesses get their start, or working capital loans through a direct program as well. And so all networked through our distribution networks that exist today. So we know that that's key. The other thing, though, is that as businesses have to be more agile and adapt to these new marketplace, we want to make sure that our technical assistance through our free or very low cost advisory services across our networks are available to small businesses. We know that e-commerce and technology adoption was a silver lining during this pandemic. It's because growth in the future is going to veer towards e-commerce, and so we want to make sure our businesses can leverage that, or that growth in addition will be through connecting with your customers through social media. We've all had to learn different skills in terms of connecting with our clients, and so all of these skill sets are something that we want to lean into, and that goes with cybersecurity. If you're going to be more online, we want to make sure you're secure. So I think that there's constant examples of that, when it comes to our resource partners, including the chambers, so many chambers host small business development centers or partner closely with our women's business centers or veterans business centers. These are where our advisors are placed that can help businesses think through those strategies. And the Build Back Better agenda imagines more investment into innovation and the commercialization of those innovations. So as you come up with a great idea, getting it to market is a whole nother challenge. And so the Build Back Better agenda that's being considered right now in Congress includes the president's vision of investing in innovation incubators, accelerators, to help businesses get to that market and get to capital to fund them in the process so that they can have that high growth. And same with the supply chain and Made in America and our federal contracting. We are leaning in the Build Back Better into more business development trainings and incubation of our contractors so that we can make sure that we're building strong businesses that can create jobs and create the economic output that we need. So that's what's envisioned in Build Back Better: the capital, the market opportunities, and then of course these networks that will continue to build up stronger ecosystems. And we know that the chambers will be a key part of making sure that we're connecting all of our businesses to these opportunities, especially our startups who need a team around them, just like we all need teams around us. You wear so many hats as as an entrepreneur out there. And so making sure that you supplement your skill set with others who are offering those services in the community is so important. And that's what SBA wants to be a part of that team of advisors or resource partners.
Well, Administrator, you have been, as always, very generous with your time. The programs that you are helping administer are really reaching thousands of small businesses. We have a goal of helping them reach millions of small businesses along with you, because that is going to be the key, both for our continued recovery, but America's future economic success. I know you, as I noted at the beginning, grew up in a small business household. It runs in your blood, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So that's a great thing to have an ally like you in the administration. So thank you so much for taking time to join us today. Please don't hesitate to reach out if we can be helpful in helping you assist America's small businesses.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I know this partnership will be really impactful.
Thank you so much.